This is an interview as part of the oral history of the Little Brown Jug project that's being done by the Delaware County Historical Society. And today's interview is with Sheriff Russell Martin, R-U-S-S-E-L-L-M-A-R-T-I-N. We're doing this on October the 3rd. We're in the Delaware County Library in Delaware. Sheriff Martin, I just want to say thank you very much for being willing to be a participant in this. Let me just start at the beginning. The first jug that you attended, about how old were you and what year was that?
Well, I've been in the community now 38 years. So it would have been 38 years ago when I first attended the Brown Jug. And at that time, I was a wet behind the ears, new young police officer. And so that whole experience was brand new to me. I had, my wife and I had moved here from Auglaize County, and was not familiar with the Little Brown Jug. And in my role as a young police officer, patrolman, we were all assigned to work that day to manage the traffic, and we all were assigned different intersections. So my earliest experience with the Little Brown Jug is working in partnership with my co-workers to make sure the traffic got into the event safely and then out of town safely as well. Okay.
So when it comes to being a police officer at the Jug, do you spend any time seeing the races or anything else that's going on?
Well, as I considered this oral history, I was reminded of a scene from the original Jaws movie, and I thought it was about the best analogy I could make. In that movie, the chief is on the beach on a major holiday, and he's been directed to open up the beach so that everybody can enjoy the beach and the holiday and the weather. And while everybody's enjoying the holiday and beach balls and in the water, the scene shows the chief almost in a state of anxiety as he's watching the beach, surveying all those in the water, and you can see that his primary concern is for the safety and welfare of those at the beach. And really, I think in law enforcement, the reality of it is while we may have seen portions of some races or listened to the call of the races, most law enforcement officers are charged to be vigilant and to be situationally aware, and they really just don't get a chance to enjoy what everybody else is enjoying. Their primary responsibility is making sure everybody's safe.
Okay. So since that first jug, about how frequently, is it every jug that you have attended?
Well, I've been to every jug in some capacity, and in 38 years, I think I've probably only had 2 where I was just off for the day, either as when my schedule fell as a patrolman, and I can only recall one time going to the Jug as in 38 years, going to the Little Brown Jug race as a spectator, and primarily that was because our neighbors at the time actually had horses, and they invited us to share that experience with them. So the reality of it is, in almost 4 decades and participating on some level in 38, 39 Little Brown Jugs, I've only been there one time as a spectator.
Okay. Would you say that you looked forward to the Jug or not really?
Well, I think that it's a part of Delaware County. There's no doubt about it. The Little Brown Jug, this area is known for it. So I can't imagine a September without the Little Brown Jug and the Delaware County Fair. So I do appreciate the significance of the event in creating the distinction that is Delaware County. But I will tell you that I think in general law enforcement sees it as a job and sees it as I've said before, their primary concern is making sure that people enjoy the day, they enjoy the day safely, and that they arrive safely and get out of town safely as well.
Mm. Well, over that, 4 decades almost, have you seen some changes in the jug?
Yeah, I certainly have seen changes over the several decades. It was a pretty signature event in all of Central Ohio early on. I think there was less off-track betting. The crowds were much larger, and as a result of that, I think more spectators came in from at least the eastern seaboard, Florida, Canada, and I will tell you that 35, 40 years ago, the downtown really kind of rocked on the night of the Little Brown Jug and the night before. Those events have really kind of changed over time, and now I think that the crowds, they are a little bit smaller because of the availability, I think, to bet off track. More people can keep track of the events on the internet, and as a result of that, the crowds have just kind of gotten smaller. And I think too that we don't quite have that party atmosphere in downtown Delaware that we had 30, 35 years ago, which is probably okay, as a police officer.
Okay. Again, this may be a question that relates more to the person who would attend the jug for the racing and so on, but are there some traditions that you think should be retained as a part of the jug, something that shouldn't be let go?
Well, while it's not directly associated with the Little Brown Jug, there's no doubt about it, the all-horse parade, which is a week before the jug. Mm-hmm. I think that is a tradition that needs to continue. I think the community, people travel to see all the different horses. That's a special event. Mm-hmm. And overall, I would be disappointed if the race itself migrated away from the fairgrounds. That partnership between the fair and the Little Brown Jug makes it certainly a unique experience in all of Ohio. And so just the tradition of having a leg of that Triple Crown during our fair week. I mean, I hope that's something that's always there.
That is one of the special features.
Absolutely, and hopefully that will remain. During the course of time, there's always been discussions about taking that race to one of the local racetracks in Central Ohio, but I think that the fair has a distinctly different flavor as a result of having a leg of the Triple Crown as a part of it.
Okay. In order for the Little Brown Jug to continue into the future, to be sustained, what changes, if any, do you think could be or need to be made?
Well, first and foremost, I think that fairgrounds in and of itself should be one of the premier county fair destinations. And frankly, the recent passage in recent years of a bed tax has provided a revenue stream to keep those fairgrounds up, adding new facilities, improving old facilities, improving the infrastructure. So I just think the sustaining of the fairgrounds, keeping the facilities looking nice and safe, that revenue stream, I think it's important that because this race is so significant, that it has a destination worthy of a leg of the Triple Crown.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, again, your principal focus has been security, and I'm wondering if in the history that you have with the jug there have been some particular challenges that are memorable for you.
Yeah, and I think this speaks to how law enforcement sees the world in which it lives in. I think most law enforcement officers see themselves as guardians or, protectors. So when we think about an event of the scale of the Little Brown Jug, I look back over the course of my professional career, I can remember early on when the Delaware Hotel was open on South Sandusky Street, and their bar and reception area was always packed on both the Tuesday and on the Wednesday and Thursday nights of Fair Week, with people from all over the country, Florida, Canada, the Eastern Seaboard, who came in for that race. And frankly, as a young police officer, I can remember responding on numerous occasions to patrons who had had too much to drink, and those old classic bar fights that we used to walk into and have to separate the locals from the visitors, and on some occasions have to make arrest. And so those were exciting times as a young police officer. We had some occasions in the downtown bars as well. And I do remember a gentleman from out of state pulling a knife on a police officer one night, and he had to be arrested, and it was a pretty harrowing event. Fortunately, the officer didn't get stabbed, and we were able to subdue that guy. So, those aren't your classic brown jug stories, but I think they speak to what law enforcement has to deal with. Yeah. And then I think when I look back, again, there have been events that have impacted law enforcement. I think about the potential threat of tornadoes coming through and high winds. We've had to contend with that, and how do we get those patrons out of there safely under those circumstances. And then I think one of the significant memories in law enforcement, again, it speaks to that issue of public safety and dealing with really tragedy on some level, was the event where the starter's gate failed to go up during the start of a race. And I was working that day when that truck pulled to the side to allow the race to go around it, and unfortunately the gate didn't go up, and it struck several of the patrons who were watching the race along the fence line. And the response to those serious injuries, and just the tragedy of the event at such a special occasion. It's been a long time ago, but I remember the injuries and the impact even on the first responders as they were administering first aid. And so again, it's a great community event, but when your primary focus is public safety, you have less of an opportunity to enjoy the party atmosphere, because you're more focused on the people and their safety so that they can enjoy it.
Okay. I know that traffic is an issue, and I'm wondering, over the years, has that changed?
Yeah, I would say, again, having been a part of the community for almost 4 decades, I saw several iterations of ingress and egress traffic into and out of the fairgrounds. And I can remember when our supervisors would experiment annually with different ways, and we would capture where the bottlenecks were. But I will say that over time, I think that they've captured a plan that safely gets people in, with cooperation from the local police, the sheriff's office, and the State Highway Patrol. We're able to manage a lot of those intersections and get people out as well. So I do think there's been a vast improvement in preparation for those events, as opposed to 30 years ago. And our communication has obviously improved. But it also speaks to the fact that, I worked at the intersection of Central and Sandusky Street for many years, and you just knew going into the event, because you'd worked that intersection previously, that was going to be your intersection. And I think local law enforcement took some pride in working their intersection efficiently and trying to get cars through without accidents. And so yeah, I think law enforcement sees, again, the value that they bring to the event by just managing the traffic.
Okay. Does the fact that horses are involved, does that have any impact? Does that pose any kind of interesting problems for your staff?
Well, I think over the course of, again, almost 4 decades, there are probably stories out there where, they've had to move the horses, or, sometimes it's an unpredictable animal. And even on the fairgrounds, there's been events when maybe a horse has gotten loose, it had to be corralled. Again, I know it's a law enforcement perspective, but just 2 years ago, as the county sheriff, I was on the backstretch, and I was in a golf cart with another deputy, and we were kind of surveying the people at the event and making sure that things were safe. And a horse got temporarily loose and ran into the crowd, and there was a small gathering of people seated on a blanket, and as the horse stomped through, it broke the leg of one of the patrons. And so the squad had to arrive and administer first aid, and he was not a young gentleman, he was older, and it was a pretty significant injury. So again, you're dealing with a strong, several 100-pound animal who is on sometimes unpredictable, and even that can create some challenges for public safety.
I can see that. In your opinion, what are some of the positive contributions that the Jug has made for Delaware, for the county in general? Yeah,
I certainly think that the Little Brown Jug has helped put Delaware County on the map. As I've had the opportunity to travel, and as people have asked me where I'm from, on many occasions, people from other states or even in Canada have said, well, isn't that where they run the Little Brown Jug, a race, a leg of the Triple Crown. So it has put Delaware County on the map. As I stated earlier, it makes this a very unique fair, unlike any other county fair in the state of Ohio. And I think as a result of that, I think it separates our community from a lot of other communities and gives it, adds to the uniqueness of Delaware County.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other topics, stories that you'd like to include so that this would be an even better oral history?
Well, I think there's a measure of satisfaction at the end of Fair Week or at the end of the Little Brown Jug for law enforcement. I mean, we know that people travel here from great distances to participate in this event. That it is an annual event that brings out a lot of people in the community. Our local businesses shut down, obviously, at noon on the day of the Little Brown Jug. And I think despite the fact that law enforcement is charged with the duty to make sure people are safe and that the traffic flows safely, my fondest memories are when the traffic is finally done and law enforcement is rounding up those traffic cones. And so many officers have been dedicated to that day and the safety of people when they finally all gather back at their respective agencies. There's a certain camaraderie and a feeling of accomplishment that once again local law enforcement has worked in the background to provide this special and unique event to the community. And I think there's a sense of satisfaction in that service, and I've seen it a lot of times as we have retreated back to headquarters at the end of a long day, and somebody's inevitably bought several pizzas, and the guys and gals will stay just a little bit longer to indulge in those pizzas, tell stories about the day, give each other high fives, brag about how they managed their intersections, perhaps give their coworkers a rough time because they didn't manage their intersections so well. But I think from a law enforcement perspective, there is that sense that we've contributed to a special event in this county, and I think by and large, most police officers and deputies feel good about that.
Yeah, it's a source of pride.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, I think that's our interview.
Did you ever ride in a sulky?
You know what? I have never ridden in a sulky. I've been invited a few times, and I need to make that a part of my checklist on my bucket list. And someday I'll do that. And frankly, this year I considered riding in the back of the starter's truck. I guess you can get a perspective of the race. And so I'm not done being sheriff yet, and there's still a few things I would like to do associated with the Little Brown Jug.
Well, again, thank you very much for making time for us, and I would very much appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.